video lecture on Chapter 13, which focuses on the remaining amendments to the Constitution, the ones that have not been discussed in more detail in a specific chapter. So some of the Bill of Rights we haven't looked at yet include the 3rd, the 7th, the 9th, and the 10th. The 3rd Amendment prohibited soldiers from being quartered in an individual citizen's home without their consent. This has never been reviewed by the Supreme Court, but it does hold some historical significance that the government should not interfere with people's homes without a compelling reason. The 7th Amendment establishes you have the right to a jury trial for all lawsuits if the value is more than $20. So that's a little dated. It extends the right to a jury trial to civil cases, and it determines whether a federal jury trial, it helps determine federal jury trials in the process. The 9th Amendment establishes that the rights to the United States citizens are not limited to those in the Constitution or the preceding Bill of Rights. This is largely also historical, and rights that are not specifically listed we call unenumerated rights. So these are the right to privacy, to interstate travel, freedom of association. Those are the types of rights that are thought to be protected here. An example is the Griswold versus Connecticut case. The 10th Amendment embodies federalism. This is the idea that power is shared by the national government and by states. So powers are not delegated to the United States government nor prohibited to the states, are reserved to the states respectively. This is where states have the authority for police power and things like that. So the 10th Amendment, delegated powers are those that are enumerated and implied. Reserved powers are retained by the state, with the largest one being, again, that police power. Beyond the Bill of Rights, the 11th Amendment deals with judicial power, but it's more of an administrative, it's an administrative directive. The 13th Amendment abolished slavery in conjunction with the 14th Amendment, overturned Dred Scott. 14th Amendment contains a due process clause, equal protection of law, and allowed the incorporation of the Bill of Rights to the states. The 12th Amendment established the electoral system that we currently use. The 14th Amendment also establishes how representatives are apportioned and what their qualifications are, like how old they have to be. The 17th Amendment describes how the United States Senate should be composed, the qualifications to be a senator, namely age, and how vacancies to a senator's seat should be filled. So establishes like the term of the president, the chain of command. The 22nd Amendment restricts the term of presidency to 2 terms. The 23rd Amendment gives representation to the district that gives representation to Washington, D.C. The 25th Amendment establishes the procedures for filling vacancies and actions that, if the president were incapacitated, how authority could be vested in the vice president or the next ranking official to ensure a smooth transition of power and effective government. The 27th Amendment prevents Congress from setting its own salary, but Congress does get cost of living raises, which is considered not to be an actual raise. The 15th Amendment protects the right to vote. It says the right to vote shall not be denied because of race, color, or previous condition of servitude. In 1920, it requires that the right to vote should not be denied on account of sex. So women get the right to vote 50 years after Black males get the right to vote. Now, Black women don't get the right to vote until 1964, the Civil Rights Act. So it's important to note that Black women were the last group to be enfranchised in our country. Under the 24th Amendment, we cannot restrict people from voting because they can't pay a tax. The 26th Amendment lowered the voting age to 18. The 16th Amendment established the federal income tax and Congress's ability to levy and collect taxes. The 18th Amendment prohibited the sale and purchase of intoxicating liquors, and the 21st Amendment repealed the 18th Amendment. There have been other attempts at amendments that have not passed. One has been to prohibit the burning of an American flag. Another amendment has been proposed to give victims rights within the trial process and otherwhere. There's been another amendment to require the federal budget be balanced. Additionally, an important amendment not listed here is the proposed Equal Rights Amendment that's never been enacted, which would require equal pay between the two sexes. Congress, though, is generally pretty reluctant to amend the Constitution. Now that we've talked about all these amendments, the process of amending the Constitution is addressed in Article 5. Amendments must be ratified by state legislatures, and there's not a Constitution doesn't set a time limit for when ratification must occur. This lecture, again, is pretty short, just focusing in on the text of these amendments. There is more detail in the chapter here. In some of these cases and amendments have already been covered. For instance, the 13th, 14th amendments were covered in Chapter 4, as well as the Dred Scott case. Griswold versus Connecticut case has also been covered elsewhere. So some of this material should be a quick refresher of some of these other topics that we've discussed. If you have thoughts or questions, feel free to reach out. I look forward to working with you. Enjoy the rest of your week.